Hey everybody, back again, and today we are finishing up the halberd head. As you can tell, I've already gone ahead and done all of my grinding work and got the blade all cleaned up, got the socket all cleaned up, made it all nice and uniform, one-piece construction kind of critter. That way it looks nice and pretty. Now we just go ahead and heat treat it. I'm going to heat treat it off camera just because I have to heat treat it 3 different places, and this is going to be kind of a nightmare for me. So I'll be back to you guys once that's done. Right out of our heat treat, as you can see, it's still is smoking. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that or not, but it is still smoking. It is that hot. As you can tell right here, you can actually see that section of metal up here, this blacker, bluer stuff that's hardened. And you can see that yellow straw color line where I actually have the temper running in the body of the axe. So it is hard up to about here, and then it's soft all the way back from there. And then same thing here, it's hard right here, and then soft down into the socket. And the hammerhead is rock hard, as well as the back end of the socket is also hard. So we've gone ahead and gotten our heat treat done. I'm just going to let this bad boy cool down for a minute so I can get my hands on it and take it over to my polishing system. We're going to hit it with a couple of polishing belts and a wire wheel to get it nice and prettied up. Then we'll go on to the next step. We are back from the polish stage, and it is looking rather sexy. That took about an hour to polish back up after everything, and we have a heat treated blade, sockets, all that jazz. Now if you can look in there, you can see it's almost pounded all the way in. I've just got to pound it a little more. And what I've done up in there is I've actually, just like you would on a regular hammer, split it and put a wedge in there. So as I pound it up, it's wedging itself open into the head, so it's not going to work itself free. Just going to tap on the hammer, then on the axe until it's seated all the way back. Now, as you can see, those cheeks are pushing down right where I stopped grinding on the wood. So we are at a perfect fit. So now I'm just going to go ahead and drill these holes so I can show you how we're going to pin this together, and then we'll move on to the next step. This is how we have everything locked up. So we have a pin that runs through and holds down this way, and a pin that goes like a U shape here and a reverse U here.
The next day.
So it's now the next day, and since we know that our test fit went well, what we're going to do is we took our pins out for our languette holes, and I'm going to epoxy the languettes to the side of the pole here. And then once that epoxy is set up, we'll epoxy those pins back in place. So that way, not only do we have the pins holding it, but we have epoxy holding the pins and epoxy holding the languettes as well. And a little bit of a design change that I decided on is we're going to use these little cutoff screws here instead of our languette pins. It seems my shop doggo has decided to join me. Boo Bears, come here, boy. Yeah, that's my puppy, huh? And my dog say hi to everybody, huh? Yeah. Say hi to everybody. That's my dog right there. That's my boy. So we've got our languettes glued on, and we've just got it sitting in the vise for the next little while so it can harden up and harden these sections of the languettes against the body of the wood. We've also got our screws. Each one runs to the center, is screwed in and epoxied, so they both meet each other in the center of the wood. So they basically are going to form one piece, with threads being epoxied in place as well. So this is going to be a really solid set of languettes. I don't really think it's going a whole lot of anywhere. So as you can see now, we've got some twine wraps going. We've got one right where the languettes meet up against the head where it's set, just to kind of cover any of the gapping that we had throughout here, as well as kind of reinforce that joint. And then down here, from about 6 inches above where the languettes stop, you can kind of see right there where the languettes stop and this wrap drops off. I've wrapped all the way down to reinforce where the languettes end, because where those holes are that I drilled and put those screws, they are filled with epoxy and the screws are in there, but I want to give that some extra reinforcement so that way this thing can take a beating and we don't have to worry about it snapping at that junction. One thing it'll also do, if you notice this step down here, is that's where the languettes end, and I left those square. I don't want your hand to slide up and get, bite from those edges of those lingettes. They are rounded and smooth, but it just makes it more comfortable to wield up near that head. Now what we're doing is, as you can see, I've already kind of started with a file here. I'm rounding up these corners. So these sharp corners here, we're gonna kind of make them ovate so they're nice and comfortable to the hand. We're probably gonna do another twine wrap over a 12-inch section somewhere in the middle. This is my favorite part of any build, is the fit and finish stage, because this is the part where the personality of the item kind of starts to come out and you can see, you know, how it wants to look and how it wants to be. So this right now is where we're sitting. And I'm gonna set you guys up so you can see how I file these corners down. It's very simple. Our handle rounded out and completely smoothed up. I've hit it with a couple different grades of sandpaper to get it nice and clean and smooth. Now what we're gonna do is go ahead and oil it, and then I'm gonna twine wrap this section from about here to about here, because we do have a tiny bit of grain runoff right here, and I want to get closer now that I've got a little bit smaller leads so I can kind of explain how twine wrapping on a handle like this works. And it's very simple. If you've ever done a paracord weaver wrap, this is the same thing. It's a weaver wrap. So you just do a overhand knot where the right side continuously crosses inside, and then you pull tight, make sure that gets nice and tight. And then while you're still pulling, same thing on the bottom, just another overhand knot. And you do this back and forth all the way down. And you always want to kind of push it up against itself as well, just to keep it nice and tight as you're making these movements. And at the end here, you're just going to make a bunch of these little overhand knots to tie it all together at the end. And this is going to be what holds it together, these little pigtails. Not only do they add like a little tassel to the handle, which just looks nice when you have a bunch of them hanging off the back and makes it look more period authentic, the twine actually serves quite an important purpose in terms of reinforcing the overall structure of the wood. Over time, if any cracks develop from heavy use, this will kind of help hold that wood as one structural piece as it's squeezing all the way around the grain as it runs down. Now what I do about these end pieces, you can use a pair of scissors for this. I just use my linesman's pliers because they're always handy and I keep them nice and sharp. And you're just going to go ahead and you're going to clip about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch left over on the end there, just so it doesn't come undone. Now to deal with all this frilly stuff here, we're going to take a lighter and we're just going to do a light burn, and I'll show you guys how that works. When you're doing this, you're just wanting to light just those individual strands that are poking out on fire. And what that's going to do is just burn off all those extra little strands that you don't need. And you're just going to kind of rub it, knock all that nonsense off, all that ash and everything. And you're going to do that again 1 to 2 more times. Sometimes you will find these little bits that kind of just fluff up like that. Easiest way to get rid of that is either with an X-Acto knife or scissors. And you're just going to want to clip off whatever overhangs to get it nice and clean. Don't be worried about cutting off your wrap. As long as you don't go too deep with it, you'll be alright. So we are now, hit my wall. We are now all assembled in terms of our twine, just to give it that more medieval period authentic look. We've got our hand rest right here, right at a nice waist height, and then you've got a nice grippy surface for your upper hand. So you can still allow that bottom hand to slide around for different maneuvers, but you've got a nice grip wherever you decide to grab down low. And if you decide to thrust with it, you can get right on that wood in between those two sections of wrap, and it'll give you a nice stop for when you thrust. Our next step's going to be just a little more on the bottom. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to drill a screw right into the base of our bottom here. Instead of doing a bottom spike, we're just going to have a nice secure screw with a piece of leather to keep the water out. And then we're going to twine wrap those leather ends from the base up.
2 hours later.
So it is now a while later, and as you can see, we've done some more work on the haft up here. We've got leather tassels all over the place up here, and there are many reasons why people think that these used to be on these weapons. A lot of people say it was to signify wealth because of the different colors of leather and different varieties of leather, as leather was expensive back then, especially dyed leather. Some people think it was to tangle up incoming weapons or to block your opponent's view of you, kind of get in their way more with the weapon. Some people think it was just to protect the haft from incoming blows because it adds more leather underneath, and it is a distinguishing thing having that on there flopping around in the wind. As for me, I think it was a status symbol, just showing people how much you could afford to waste on your weapon, because weapons were oftentimes, especially by knights, they would purchase their own weapons. They wouldn't be given weapons for free by any means. But yeah, so we've got all the twine wrapping done. We've got our little base cap, which as you can see has that little screw and leather, just to keep it from getting maimed up on the ground over use and over sitting down, because people tend to just set these on the ground so that way the end grain doesn't get destroyed on the wood. And we've got our little handholds. So we've got our nice axis handhold. It'll keep your hand in a firm place here, and you've got the ability to move up and down on the back end for reach, and you can come down on the handle to the grippy bits and move up and down this section for a good solid grip on your front hand. So up close you can kind of see more of those tassels, and there are actually leather straps under that. That's why it's so bulky through that area, but that's mainly in case in use if you miss. You've got a really strong buffer that is also going to look pretty wild when you're using this thing. So next video we're going to sharpen up this blade. We're going to put it to the test through wood, through bottles, all kinds of stuff. So hopefully you guys are there. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, like down below. Helps the channel grow, helps me reach more people and show more people these things that I am indeed selling. If you haven't seen how I built the head and languette portion, go check out the last video in the playlist below, and it will show you how we forge all this lovely steel. But until next time, God bless. Stay sharp out there.